In the gleaming crystal spires of Zaloth's capital city, an air of desperation hung over the emergency council meeting. Kalon, the High Ambassador, gazed gravely at the holographic star map floating above the chamber's central dais. Red icons marked the inexorable advance of the Kriktak, an insectoid race whose only goal seemed to be devouring everything in their path. "Our defenses cannot hold them back much longer," Kalon said, his melodic voice heavy with sorrow. "The Kriktak have already consumed a dozen star systems, billions of lives lost, thousands of years of history and culture erased." The counselors murmured anxiously, their shimmering skin flickering through shades of blue and purple to match their emotions. The Xyloth were an ancient, sophisticated people, but their technology and philosophy had always been geared towards creation and discovery, not destruction. They had no answer for the Kriktak's single-minded ferocity. Ambassador Thaler, Kalon's oldest friend, spoke up hesitantly. "There are rumors of a species far on the other side of the galaxy. They call their homeworld Earth, a place of extremes, scorching deserts, frozen wastes, crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere. By all rights, it should be a lifeless rock. And yet this species thrives there." Kalon finished, eyes widening with realization. "Humans, I've heard the stories too. They are not merely survivors, but thrive on adversity." Thaler nodded. "It's said that they fight each other for sport, that they willingly poison themselves for pleasure, that their bodies can heal from wounds that would kill any Xyloth." "They sound like monsters," another counselor protested. "How could such violent creatures help us?" Kalon raised a slender hand for silence. "We have no other choice. The Kriktak will not negotiate or show mercy. We need the humans' strength, their resilience. We need warriors." He turned to his aide. "Send a message on all frequencies, directed towards Earth. Tell them the Xyloth need their help. Promise them anything if they come to our aid." As the aide hurried to comply, Kalon sagged back in his chair, watching the red icons on the star map creep ever closer to Xyloth. He could only pray to the ancients that these humans were the saviors his people needed. Light years away, in the cold depths of interstellar space, a lone Earth ship cruised on a mission of exploration. The ESS Endeavour was a small research vessel, crewed by a few dozen humans from different Earth nations. Captain Talia Vance sat on the bridge, sipping a mug of strong coffee as she reviewed the day's sensor logs. It had been a quiet few months mapping mineral-rich asteroids. Most of the crew was taking the opportunity to relax, enjoying the ship's gardens or VR entertainment suites. Suddenly, a communications alert blared through the bridge. Talia's XO, Commander Lai, rushed to the comm station. "Captain, we're receiving a high-priority message on an open channel," Lai reported, his brow furrowed. "It's not from Earth." Talia set aside her coffee, instantly alert. "Put it on screen." The main view screen flickered to life, showing an alien face unlike any Talia had seen before. It had luminous silver skin, large amethyst eyes, and delicate, almost elfin features. "Greetings, people of Earth," the alien said, its voice resonating like a crystal chime. "I am High Ambassador Kalon of the Xyloth. My people face extinction at the hands of a ruthless enemy, the Kriktak. We have heard tales of your strength, your indomitable will to survive. We beg for your aid. Without you, the Xyloth will perish. I implore you, help us." The message ended, leaving a stunned silence on the Endeavour's bridge. Talia gripped the arms of her chair, mind racing. First contact with an alien species, and it was a desperate plea for help. She looked around at her crew, seeing the same determined glint in their eyes that she felt herself. Humans had always risen to a challenge. "Helm, set a course for the coordinates in that message," Talia ordered. "Comms, tell Earth Command we're responding to a first contact situation." "And tactical," she smiled grimly. "Dust off the weapon systems. Looks like the Endeavour's becoming a battleship." As the small human ship accelerated towards Xyloth space, Talia knew they were racing towards danger and uncertainty. But one thought burned in her mind. If there was a species out there that needed humanity's unique brand of courage, then the Endeavor would be the first to answer that call. They were humans, after all. Taking on the impossible was what they did best. First contact. The ESS Endeavor dropped out of warp at the edge of Xyloth space, its hull still glowing from the heat of faster-than-light travel. On the bridge, Captain Talia Vance leaned forward in her chair, eyes fixed on the view screen. "Sensors, report," she barked. "What are we looking at?" Ensign Kim, the young Korean woman at the sensor station, studied her readouts intently. "I'm picking up a large fleet of ships in orbit around the fourth planet. Configuration doesn't match anything in our databases." Talia nodded. "The Xyloth, it has to be." She turned to her comms officer. "Hail them, Lieutenant. Let's do this by the book. First contact protocols." The comms officer sent out a standard greeting on all frequencies, identifying the Endeavor and stating their peaceful intentions. For a few tense moments, there was silence. Then the view screen wavered and resolved into the image of a Xyloth, its silver skin glowing softly. "Earthship Endeavor," it said, the universal translator rendering its words into perfect English. "I am High Ambassador Kalen. We are grateful beyond words that you have come." Talia stood, straightening her uniform. "I'm Captain Talia Vance. Your message said you needed our help. Can you explain your situation?" Kalen's face seemed to ripple with distress. "The Cricktac," he said. "An insectoid race from the far reach of the galaxy. They invaded our space a year ago. Our defenses were no match for their ferocity. They've overrun a dozen of our colony worlds. Billions dead, entire cities consumed. And now they're coming for Xyloth Prime, our homeworld." Talia digested this information, her jaw set. "What do you know about their capabilities?" "Their tactics. They overwhelm through sheer numbers," Kalen said. "Their ships are organic, grown not built, with regenerative hulls. They ram and board, seeking only to devour. Please, Captain, we are a peaceful people. We have no warriors. Without your aid, the Xyloth will be just another species consumed by the Cricktac swarm." Talia looked around at her crew. She saw determination in their eyes, a readiness to face this challenge head-on. It was the same look she'd seen in the eyes of her fellow officers during the Martian Rebellion, when Earth had teetered on the brink of self-annihilation. Humans knew what it meant to fight for survival. "Ambassador Kalen," she said firmly, "we'll do everything in our power to help you. The Endeavor is a research ship, not a warship, but every human is a fighter when we need to be. We're with you." Kalen's relief was palpable, even through the view screen. "Thank you, Captain. Thank you. Please, bring your ship into orbit. I will gather the council to meet you in person." As the transmission ended, Talia turned to her XO. "Commander Lai, you have the bridge. I'll be leading the away team." Lai nodded crisply. "Aye, Captain. We'll keep the home fires burning." A short while later, Talia materialized with her away team in a vast, open-air plaza in the heart of the Xyloth capital. Soaring crystal spires glittered in the sunlight, and the air was filled with the gentle tinkling of wind chimes. Ambassador Kalen was waiting for them, flanked by a group of Xyloth officials. Up close, Talia was struck by how fragile they looked, their slender bodies draped in shimmering robes. They seemed like beings of light and air, ill-suited for the horrors of war. Kalen stepped forward, pressing his hands together in what the Endeavor's cultural database indicated was a gesture of greeting and respect. "Captain Vance," he said, "welcome to Xyloth Prime. I only wish it were under better circumstances." Talia returned the gesture, acutely aware of how her human crew must look to the Xyloth. Bulky, crude, their faces weathered by harsh Earth environments. "We're here to help in any way we can," she said. "My tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Zhang, will want to coordinate with your military leaders, and my chief engineer, Commander Sato, can assist with any technological adaptations." Kalen nodded. "Of course, We are grateful for any aid you can provide. But Captain, I must warn you. The Crick-Tac are unlike any foe you will have faced before. They have no concept of mercy, of surrender. They will fight until either they or their enemy are utterly destroyed. Talia met his gaze unflinchingly. Ambassador, we're humans. We wrote the book on fighting against impossible odds. It's why we're still here, after everything our world has thrown at us. We don't know how to give up. She thought of Earth, the chaos of its history, the countless wars and disasters, the relentless struggle to survive and thrive. The same struggle that had forged humanity into the stubborn, indomitable species it was. The Crick-Tac want to fight to the end, Talia said, a fierce grin spreading across her face. Then that's exactly what we'll give them. As the human and Xyloth leaders began to strategize, Talia felt a surge of pride in her crew, her species. They were a long way from home, facing an unknowable threat, but they were human, and they would stand tall against the coming storm. The Endeavor had answered the Xyloth's call. Now, it was time to show the galaxy what humans were made of. Preparations. In the days following the Endeavor's arrival, Xyloth Prime became a hive of activity. Human engineers and tacticians worked side by side with their Xyloth counterparts, poring over schematics and battle plans. Captain Talia Vance stood in the Xyloth High Command Center, studying a holographic map of the approaching Crick-Tac fleet. The insectoid ships swarmed like locusts, their organic hulls pulsing with sickly green bioluminescence. Their numbers are staggering, Talia murmured. And you say they regenerate? High Ambassador Kalen nodded gravely. Any damage they sustain, they heal within hours. Our weapons barely scratch them. Commander Sato, the Endeavor's chief engineer, leaned in. What about internal systems? Surely they must have some sort of control center, a brain. Kalen shook his head. If they do, our scans have never been able to pinpoint it. The Crick-Tac ships read as a mass of undifferentiated organic matter. Talia frowned, her mind racing. Conventional tactics wouldn't work here. They needed a new approach, something the Crick-Tac had never faced before. Suddenly, the room's communication screen lit up with an incoming transmission from Earth. Admiral Novak, the gruff, battle-hardened commander of Earth's space fleet, appeared on the screen. Captain Vance, he said without preamble, we received your report. The President has authorized a full military response. I'm leading a battle group to reinforce you, ETA 72 hours. Talia felt a rush of relief. That's excellent news, Admiral. But I'm not sure even our combined forces will be enough. The Crick-Tac are unlike anything we've seen. Novik's craggy face hardened. Then we hit them with something they've never seen. I'm bringing every trick in the book, Vance. Nova bombs, dark matter torpedoes, singularity mines. We'll show these bugs what human ingenuity can do. As the transmission ended, Talia saw a glimmer of hope in Kalen's eyes. Your people are truly remarkable, Captain, the ambassador said. To face such overwhelming odds without hesitation, I begin to understand why the tales of Earth are spoken with such awe. Talia grinned. We're just getting started, Ambassador. Now let's figure out how to take the fight to the Crick-Tac. Over the next 3 days, the Endeavor crew threw themselves into preparations with a determination that astonished their Xyloth allies. In the ship's engineering bay, Commander Sato and her team worked around the clock, retrofitting Xyloth weapons with human power cores and targeting systems. These plasma cannons of yours pack a hell of a punch, Sato told the Xyloth engineers, but they overheat too fast. We're going to wire them into our fusion reactors, give you sustained firepower. In the training halls, Lieutenant Commander Zhang drilled Xyloth volunteers in human combat tactics. The slender, ethereal beings struggled at first with the brutal hand-to-hand techniques, but Zhang was relentless. The Crick-Tac won't hesitate to tear you apart. He barked as the Xyloth picked themselves up from the mats. You need to be just as ruthless. Again, even the ship's medical officer, Dr. Patel, found ways to contribute. She worked with Zilloth biotechnicians to develop a series of viruses and toxins targeted specifically at crick-tack physiology. From what we know of their biology, she explained to Talia, they're susceptible to certain neurochemical disruptions. These agents could slow them down, confuse them, maybe even make them turn on each other. As the hours ticked down to the arrival of both the crick-tack swarm and the Earth battle group, the tension on Xyloth Prime reached a breaking point. But Talia saw something else in the eyes of her crew and their new allies, a fierce, unwavering resolve. In a quiet moment, Ambassador Kalon found Talia staring out at the stars from an observation deck. "Your people have given us something we thought we'd lost, Captain," he said softly. "Hope. No matter what happens, the Xyloth will never forget what you've done for us." Talia turned to him, her eyes blazing with the spirit that had carried humanity through countless trials. "We're not done yet, Ambassador. The crick-tack want to see what a Deathworld can do. We'll give them a front-row seat." She thought of Earth, the wars, the catastrophes, the relentless struggle that had forged humanity into a species that could stare into the abyss and refuse to blink. That indomitable will had brought them to the stars, and now it would be the galaxy's shield. The Endeavor and its human crew had come to Xyloth Prime as explorers. They would leave as warriors, ready to stand against the darkness. For that was the essence of humanity, to light the fire of hope, no matter how deep the night. The battle for Xyloth, for the very future of the galaxy, was about to begin. And the humans of Earth would be at its forefront, unbowed and unbroken, ready to face the impossible. It was, after all, what they did best, holding the line. The crick-tack came like a plague, their organic ships darkening the skies over Xyloth Prime. In the Xyloth High Command, Captain Talia Vance stood alongside Ambassador Kalon and the other leaders, watching the enemy's approach with a grim determination. "They're not even trying to establish orbit," Talia said, eyeing the tactical display. "They're heading straight for the surface. They mean to overwhelm us." Kalon's face was ashen, but his voice remained steady. "Our planetary defenses will not hold for long against such an onslaught. And your reinforcements are still hours away." Talia set her jaw. "Then we make every minute count." She turned to the Xyloth commanders. "Activate your ground-based cannons. Hit them with everything you've got. We'll keep them busy in the skies." As the Xyloth scrambled to comply, Talia opened a channel to the Endeavor. "Commander Lai, status report." Lai's face appeared on the screen, the bridge bustling with activity behind him. "All systems are green, Captain. The Xyloth squadrons are in formation with us, ready to engage on your command." Talia nodded. "Godspeed, Commander. Give them hell." The view screen shifted to a live feed from the Endeavor's external cameras. Talia watched as the lone human ship, dwarfed by the sleek Xyloth vessels surrounding it, powered towards the oncoming crick-tack swarm. The first wave of insectoid ships hit the combined human-Xyloth defenses like a tidal wave. Plasma cannons and fusion missiles lit up the sky, tearing into the organic hulls of the crick-tack vessels. But for every ship that fell, a dozen more surged forward, their regenerative capabilities quickly sealing any wounds. On the ground, the Xyloth forces fought with a desperate bravery. The once peaceful beings now wielded human-modified weapons with lethal efficiency, their slender forms darting through the rubble of their shattered cities. But the crick-tack ground troops kept coming, an endless tide of chidness bodies and slashing claws. In the thick of the aerial battle, the Endeavor danced like a boxer in a ring, weaving between the lumbering crick-tack ships and delivering punishing blows. Talia's heart swelled with pride as she watched her crew work, their movements precise and fearless. But even human ingenuity had its limits. As the hours ground on, the Endeavor's shields began to falter, its hull scorched and dented. The Xyloth ships fared even worse, their graceful lines shattered by the relentless crick-tack onslaught. In the command center, Kalon gripped the edge of the tactical table, his eyes haunted. "They're going to overrun us," he whispered. "Even with all your help, It's not enough. Talia stared at the display, watching her ship, her crew, fighting with everything they had. They were outnumbered, outgunned, facing an enemy that knew no fear or mercy. By all rights, they should surrender, retreat, save what lives they could. But that wasn't the human way. Talia straightened, her eyes blazing. "Ambassador," she said, her voice ringing with a steel forged in the crucible of Earth's harshest trials. "Tell your people to fall back to these coordinates." She indicated a point on the map, a narrow valley flanked by towering cliffs. "We'll buy you as much time as we can." Kalen stared at her, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You're going to sacrifice yourselves." "Captain, no, we can't ask that of you." Talia shook her head. "You're not asking. We're offering." She met his gaze, unflinching. "Humans don't run from a fight. We don't abandon our friends. We stand, we hold the line, no matter the cost." She opened a channel to the Endeavor. "Commander Lai, new orders. We're going to be the anvil. The Xyloth will be the hammer. Draw the Crick-Tack into the Karekis Valley. We'll hold them there." There was a moment of silence. Then Lee's voice, steady and sure. "Understood, Captain. It's been an honor." Talia closed her eyes briefly. "The honor was mine, Commander. Give them something to remember us by." As the channel closed, Talia turned to the stunned Xyloth commanders. "Recall your forces. Get your civilians to safety. And when the Earth fleet arrives, you tell them. You tell them we held the line." Kalun stepped forward, his hand outstretched. "Captain Vance, Talia, your name, your deeds, will be remembered for as long as the Xyloth endure. This, I swear." Talia clasped his hand, feeling the weight of history in the moment. "Fight well, Kalun. Win this war. Make our sacrifice matter." Then she was striding from the command center, her head held high, ready to join her crew for their final stand. On the view screen, the Endeavor, battered but unbowed, turned to face the oncoming Crick-Tack swarm. Its weapons blazed defiantly, the lone beacon of courage against the darkness. In the skies above Xyloth Prime, a human ship and its valiant crew prepared to write their names in the stars, their blood and courage the ink. They were the front line, the bulwark, the immovable object against the unstoppable force. They were human, and they would hold the line. Turning the tide. The Karekis Valley ran red with the blood of humans, and Crick-Tack alike. The Endeavor, its hull breached in a dozen places, lay like a wounded beast among the shattered remains of the insectoid ships it had dragged down with it. But even as the Crick-Tack swarmed over the fallen vessel, the surviving crew fought on with a savagery that stunned their foes. Led by a bloody but unbowed Captain Talia Vance, they met the enemy hand-to-hand, their weapons spent, their resolve unbreakable. In the skies above, the battle raged on. The Xyloth forces, heartened by the human sacrifice, fought with renewed vigor, their sleek ships darting and weaving, harrying the Crick-Tack at every turn. But it was a losing battle, and everyone knew it. The Crick-Tack's numbers seemed endless, their organic ships healing almost as fast as they could be damaged. Despair hung heavy in the air, a suffocating pall. And then, a miracle. It started as a glimmer on the sensors, a distant echo easily mistaken for a ghost signal. But it grew, steadily and surely, resolving into a sight that brought tears to the eyes of the weary defenders. Ships, human ships, dropping out of warp at the edge of the system. Dozens of them, then hundreds, a vast armada flying the colors of Earth. On the bridge of the EDS Titan, flagship of the Earth Defense Fleet, Admiral Eric Novak stood tall, his grizzled face set in a mask of determination. He had seen the devastation as they approached, seen the brave Endeavor making its last stand. His heart ached for the lives lost, but his resolve only hardened. "All ships, engage the enemy," he barked. "Fighters, clear a path to the surface. We're going to show these bugs what happens when you mess with Earth." Like avenging angels, the human fleet tore into the Crick-Tack swarm. Nova bombs blossomed like suns, searing the insectoid ships to ash. Singularity torpedoes ripped through their formations, leaving twisted wrecks in their wake. And in their midst, a single vessel stood out, a sword among the stars. The EDS Nemesis, a prototype warship bristling with humanity's most advanced weapons. At its helm, Commander Lai, his face grim as he gave the order. Fire the Thanatos cannon. A lance of pure white energy erupted from the Nemesis, so bright it seared the eyes of those who looked upon it. It struck the heart of the Crick-Tack fleet, and for a moment, the universe held its breath. Then, a ripple, a shockwave that shook the very fabric of space. The Crick-Tack ships, those terrible, unkillable vessels, shuddered and cracked, their regenerative powers overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the destruction. Like dominoes they fell, one after another, until the skies over Xyloth Prime were filled with their burning remains. In the Karekis Valley, Captain Talia Vance, bleeding from a dozen wounds, raised her head to the sky as the Crick-Tack around her chittered in confusion and fear. A smile, weary but triumphant, spread across her face. "About damn time," she murmured. In the days that followed, as the shattered Xyloth cities began to rebuild and the human and insectoid dead were laid to rest, the story spread, whispered in awed tones across the galaxy. The story of how the humans, those strange, fierce creatures from a world that should have destroyed them, had stood against the unstoppable Crick-Tack. How they had fought and died, not for glory or conquest, but for a people they barely knew, for a principle they held dear. For the right of all beings to live free from fear and oppression. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Kalen stood before the assembled representatives, his voice ringing with gratitude and reverence. "We owe the humans a debt we can never repay," he said. "They came to our aid when no one else would, fought for us when we could not fight for ourselves. Let their courage and sacrifice be a lesson to us all." And on Earth, as the ships of the Defense Fleet returned home, bearing their fallen heroes, a new sense of pride and purpose swept the planet. They had always known they were survivors, that they could endure anything the universe threw at them. Now, they knew they were something more. They were protectors, guardians, a light in the darkness. They had looked into the abyss and not only survived, but triumphed. They were human, and the galaxy would never forget it.